So the person that I'm going to introduce now is Adrian Shapiro, Adrian Bell-Coors Shapiro, who's one of the most noted sickle cell disease and stem cell patient advocates in the country, if not the world. She's the founder and science administrator of Access Advocacy Sickle Cell Disease website. She's the fourth generation of mothers in her family to have a child born with sickle cell disease. She's one of the first supporters of work done by UCLA's Dr. Don Kahn in bone marrow and later in stem cell transplants. She's an ambassador for the Americans for Cures Foundation, of which I'm proudly a board member. She is an ambassador and advocate for the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. She's the kind of advocate that stays to the bitter end of any conference and won't let go and is sorry that it ends. She's supported by a wonderful husband, Ron Shapiro, is in the audience, my friend, Adrian Bell-Coors Shapiro. Put down your paper.
Put down my paper.
Hold the award. So proud of you. Don't drop it. Thank you. Thank you.
So those of you that have known me in the past few years know that I'm seldom speechless. I want to say thank you for this amazing honor. When I got the email, I thought they'd made a mistake. So I called and said, I sent an email saying I'll send you an email later. And finally I called Bernie and I said, I think you need to call me. So he calls me. I said, I think you made a mistake. I've met the people that you've given those awards to. I am just a mother. And he said to me, no, you really inspire me. And I started to think, wow, I inspire you? I am just in awe. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you that you are honoring me in this way. I want to thank my husband and my children, and they always make the joke that I drank the stem cell Kool-Aid, and so did they. It was in December of 2014 when I called CIRM, the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine, and I said, I think you're ready for me. They didn't ask me who I was or why I thought that, but they said, come on down to San Diego to the World Stem Cell Summit. They gave me a ticket, a hotel. I drove down. I never left the hotel in 4 days. I was up at 7. I was at breakfast meetings. I was at meetings. I had my phone. I was looking up definitions. There are shots of me stalking certain stem cell rock stars. I have been waiting for stem cells all my life. I am the 4th generation of mothers in my family to have a child with sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease is a terrible, debilitating genetic disorder that causes our blood cells to go from circular to sickle shape, thus the sickle cell. They're sticky and they stop the oxygen from being delivered to vital organs and cause great pain and damage and inflammation. And it's a disease that for many years has been explained so simplistically. It is your cells sickle and it blocks the oxygen. And we now know how terrible and how debilitating it is. My mother was the first mother in my family to understand the disease and its genetic origin. She made sure all of us kids were tested, and I was told I did not have the trait. Years later, I married, and my daughter was diagnosed with sickle cell disease. And I said, that can't be. I've been tested. I'm responsible. My mom said it was stopping with her. Her father, who was Cuban, also said, can't be, not me, not my family, gave me, the look. After many test, many, which we kept paying out of pocket for, they verified it undeniably that both of us were trait carriers and that Marissa had the disease. So my mother had taught me how to take care of someone living with sickle cell. I knew it. We all knew it. My brother Teddy was with us. He was an angel. And so I knew what to do. But she also taught me to believe that science was going to cure it. I believed that all I had to do was keep her alive until the cure. And I waited and I watched over my child. I looked at new drugs that never came. I looked into bone marrow transplants, cord blood transplants, had the spare to get the cord blood, all of that, none of which was an option for my children. Had to learn a lot about genetics to learn that due to our unique genetic makeup, finding an outside donor would be nearly impossible. Stem cells held the only promise of a universal cure for her. And not only her, the 11,000 people living in California with sickle cell disease, the over 100,000 people living in the USA with sickle cell disease, and the millions suffering throughout the world. I had no idea that stem cells would change my world. I started this out only thinking about my family, thinking about Marissa, get her fixed. Casey wouldn't have to worry because she had the trait, so she would not have to make the choice of having a child or not and dealing with that, because you guys were going to take care of all that. I started talking to a lot of people about the research, and people began to tell other people about me. One day I got a call that said, "We have someone in the ER and we really want you to come and help her. They won't let her have her meds unless she has someone." I said, "Fine." Ron and I were on a date. After the date, they said, no big deal. So I went, and it was my first experience seeing someone really other than my daughter in the ER. Now, I understand that being black in America means that just by the color of your skin, you're going to carry the country's history. But I had never somehow seen the idea that having sickle cell disease, a genetic disease that was no fault of your own, carried the weight of slavery, Jim Crow, subjugation, and non-conscious or unconscious bias until that day when I actually saw it in the hospital and treatment room. This sickle cell warrior became my first death. It was Natasha. And she died a painful and unnecessary death, and I was devastated, and it angered me, and I wanted to know where the justice was and where was the hope. I kept on. Soon I was invited to join a sickle cell research team at UCLA that was doing clinical trials, and I became a CAP member. And this project was being financed by CIRM. I was on a committee that treated me fairly and openly and as a partner as we were looking for the cure for my daughter. I became a stem cell advocate with the Americans for Cures, where I met mothers who were living or had lived through my worst nightmare. They had buried their kids. Some of them had buried more than one. I began to attend scientific meetings and meet researchers, and I saw their hearts open when I talked about my family. I saw tears in their eyes as we talked about our losses. I saw them celebrate their successes, and I saw them continue to work after their failures. I met vendors who took pride in explaining to me how whatever their product does work, how it was good medicine, how it was going to help, how it was going to help all of us reach our goals. And how much that they believed in good science also. And they gave me a lot of swag to take home, even though I kept saying, I'm just a mom, I have no money. That last day of the conference, I'm telling you, lots of swag. I began to truly understand how we were all connected by our humanity. That stem cells does not have bias, conscious or unbiased. It only had science, and it had scientists. Scientists that were working every day to help me and families like mine, people around the world, people that were broken, people who had no hope. They were curing sickle cell. They were looking at diabetes. They were looking at fixing spines. They were looking at growing pancreas and kidneys. And they were going to cure diseases that had plagued families for generations and crushed mothers like me for years. I went from belief to trusting to knowing a cure was close. It has changed me. I took a load of that vendor swag after our last session, and I went to visit one of my sickle cell warriors. Her name is Lakeisha. She was thrilled. She had the T-shirt, she had the lovey, she had the squeezy thing, the thumb drive, and a notebook, because I'd always taught her you have to write down everything that happens to you. And we talked about the trial in France where they had cured a young man, and we talked about what his life was going to be without sickle cell. And we talked about not having pain, and we talked about how she, like me, would not have to worry about her daughter, Krista, passing on the sickle cell trait, and having to live with such fear. We had the best talk, and she was so happy, and I was so happy. And she died 2 days later. I was sad. I'm still sad at the loss, but I was not devastated as I had been with Natasha, because she died with trust that her daughter would be free of the fear of suffering and of passing sickle cell disease along to her children. She died in spirit and was inspired by what you do every day, dedicating your lives to people who for generations have had no hope. Know this, you are changing the world. We have had this journey now through faith, hope, belief, and now trust. You must trust in us as advocates to support you. You must trust in yourselves that you are doing your best and doing the right things. And trust that it is happening right now. It's here now. You are here now. We are here now. And what an amazing time to be the mother of a child with sickle cell. And I want to thank you. I cannot thank you enough. I thank you every morning when I get up and every night when I go to bed, and know that there are millions of me in this world, and you're going to change everything. So thank you.
Well, folks, there's nothing much more I can say. I'll see you at the Japanese Symposium tomorrow. Let's thank Adrienne again for the most beautiful talk, and thank all of our wonderful honorees. You are changing the world and everyone in this world. Thank thank you for attending the Stem Cell Action Regenerative Medicine Awards dinner. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow at the World Stem Cell Summit.